All those letters stand for a saltwater hook that's a size 4, 4X long. Too heavy. Not TOO, but 2 times. A little farther up than a full eye width back from the hook eye, as you might tie in a clouser. 4 or 5 on one side, 4 or 5 on the other, 3 or 4, then 3 or 4. And when you're using nylon, all that stretch, it starts going one way, and then you wrap the other way, and it well, it was going this way, you wrap the other way, and so all that stretch is really holding it in place. I still like to give it a little adjustment and then hit it with some bone dry or super glue. If you want to use super glue and just go straight to the hook shank, that's not a bad idea either. I kind of have a pet peeve with man, my air conditioning is going nuts. I have a pet peeve with the eyes moving. So you want the tail to be just a little thinner than the other segments. Now I've done all sorts of they don't matter adjustments to those. So Kreelex is just, so I got a little ruler on my table here, 1.25 inches back from the bend. And handicap myself 1/16 of an inch. But we are doing a small addition. So you may be inclined, your chenille might look like it wants to go this way, so tie it in the other way. Clip off, that's your tie-in point. Ooh, those gammies are sharp. So you can tie this on a size 2 as well. The 2 is just a lot with the 4 long. It's a lot. If I'm doing 2, I kind of like to go to the 3 long. And what's the difference? Well, you get a little extra hook gap in the size 2. So I'm going to walk that step back because it's somewhat important. So after my wraps, I get up to my thread, and then I'm going to wrap just to give everyone a non-twisted up view. So my thread is in front of the chenille. You can do this with rabbit strips, and anything you're wrapping. Brushes. God, there's an embarrassing part of me that wanted to say Christmas presents. So after you put your wraps up there, we're going in front of the thread that's hanging, and then all the way around. And now we're coming in front of the chenille. And now with this UV polar chenille, which I use on a lot of streamers, prep my next tie-in point, especially if I'm only doing one or two. I was going to say especially if I'm only doing one, but it's pretty rare. If I'm tying, half dozen, I'll probably leave that out and just, I'm a little looser, more loose. I'm a little looser with material waste when I'm going through half dozen or so. But that just leaves your tie-in point, and then it's not a bad idea to keep an eye on the other side, because this can, if it gets frayed, this stuff can come apart and you'll just end up wasting a big chunk when you don't need to. Water cup, keep things out of the way. And also Kreelex. The reason it doesn't matter what you put on the middle shank, if it's, I would put some UV, I would put some lateral scale, some kind of shiny belly type deal. This Kreelex really compresses, and when it does, it's solid. It's totally opaque when it compresses. And then I wanted to start that polar chenille about halfway up the remaining shank between eyes and tail, so it's about a third of the way up the shank. Because you can see that this is ending here, I want this tail to be flapping around and be just gold. I also want this to be part of my body, which is made up of my front tie-in points, versus extending farther back and being part of the tail. So this is going to be our belly, our lighter colored. And you can put the eyes up farther if you want a, more of a head down type jig. With the size, with the length of that hook, these are pretty far forward. And what you gain in the head down, as I would say, is TBD. What you lose is your ability to have that front tying part be somewhat easy, because the closer these eyes get, the harder it is to make sure there are no butt ends and also trap all of these fibers without any pulling out. So around the eye, and before I mistakenly, this is the other half of my hank. And what I was referring to when the eyes are closer, like if you're trying to get this mashed up in here, you end up with kind of that, and then it's like if your eyes are right there, it can just be a little messy. So make life easier on yourself. And this is the second half of the hank. So you want to have this belly part. I know this is a little backwards initially. You want the belly part, this belly tie-in, to be, we'll say, a third to twice. So a 33% increase, or that doesn't make any sense. We'll just say you want it to be about 2x the tail tie-in. Feel free to make that some number under 2 or even 1. So inch and a half, or sorry, inch and a quarter from the back of the eye. And then I'll leave a little bit of that chenille peeking out, which I like that. I like that copper UV. So around, after you get up tight, around the bottom. And then on these, 1, 2, get this thing mashed. This is where it's not backwards because you're spreading it around between 2/3 and 3/4 of the hook. So it's less of a bottom wing, top wing, and more of a covering the bottom. Because fish, their bellies, it's not that they're super dark and then super light. Their belly, their midsections, it's a lot of a lighter. Kind of filling in the blanks for Chuck's design. If all of these are the same amount and your proportions are correct, I would say this thing's still going to go. But I think some of this is tying true to Chuck's design. Another part is I've tied these a lot, and I like it on the gold and copper to be that big increase on the bottom. And then I tend to go on the bulkier side of things for this top tie too. And I have the smaller sizes of this without the UV chenille, and those are kind of my lower profile. This is like I want something low. All this stuff really slims down. I want something kind of super bright and really for the angler to see, but just one size up in terms of not a tiny fly. You're really going to appreciate those eyes being set back a little bit when you're tying on the bottom. I have destroyed my thumbs in the last couple days, so instead of eking that back, I'm just going to cut. Lots of tying here. AC is back. Just in time for that rain, too. Yeah, I know that doesn't make any sense. So I don't need to measure this. I'm going to use my gold. Pull it. Give you a view. Make it hard on me, because that's what I do. You can get these giant sorry, I got flash in my beak. Twice as long as this at District Angling. My boys from back when I lived in DC. And I really do. It's like Frank's Red Hot, man. Musky flies, trout flies, striper flies, smallmouth flies. I put this shit on everything. Oh God, redfish. Woo. And put bead chain. I have some with lead. If you can't see your fly when you're stripping, switch flies or move it faster. Ding dong.